Hello everyone, Max here with Fiction Rant to bring you part 2 of my Halo vs Mass Effect matchup. This part will cover the speed capabilities of both sides, including faster than light, sublight, and ground travel speeds. Unlike in my other series, I'm actually going to start with ground speeds this time, largely because they're a lot simpler. Basically, neither side has a clear advantage here. Both sides involve gameplay that largely revolves around running around on foot. Both have ground vehicles to help them get around faster, though Halo certainly has more variety in that area on the UNSC and Covenant side, where you've got various jeeps, tanks, four-wheelers, and armored personnel carriers versus Mass Effect, which basically just uses a couple varieties of armored personnel carriers. Both sides also utilize shuttles to get around faster, and both use fighters for air and ground support for their ground forces and fleets. Now we move on to the more complicated side of things, space travel. Starting with Halo, faster-than-light travel both in the UNSC and Covenant utilize slipspace drives, which allow them to travel faster than light by doing some dimension hopping. How fast these drives actually operate varies dramatically, partially due to variations in slipspace, which can make moving between locations that are relatively close to each other take longer than going to even more spread out locations that have better quality slipspace to move between them. So variations in slipspace will massively affect your travel times. What has remained fairly consistent, however, is that Covenant slipspace drives have typically been much faster than UNSC drives, though the humans managed to narrow that gap pretty dramatically and possibly even surpass the Covenant by reverse engineering the best slipspace tech, which was produced by the Forerunners thousands of years ago. To put actual numbers on things, though, the actual demonstrated speeds in games and books range from pre-war freighters taking months to cover the 14 light-year gap between Epsilon Ariadne and Epsilon Indi at the low end, to utilizing a Forerunner portal from Earth to the Ark, which had them covering hundreds of thousands of light-years in just 23 days, equating to approximately 11,400 light-years per day. Granted, that was Forerunner tech at the high end, but if we look at what the best the Covenant can achieve, they've got some ships that can do 1,368 light years per day, though, again, that depends on the quality of the drive, the quality of the slipspace, as well as something I haven't mentioned yet, the quality of the navigational computations. Utilizing slipspace drives can be quite hazardous, so having a good AI or just really beefy computers to run the numbers can not only make your trip much faster, but also much safer. I'd love to be more definitive on the numbers for this, but the capabilities of subspace drives and such, they just aren't available in concrete numbers as far as I've been able to find. And based on the fact that slipspace seems to have some inherent variation, I think that's really as good as we're going to get. Moving on to Mass Effect, there's really two kinds of FTL travel in that universe. First, there's the mass relays. These operate as basically fast travel hubs and are spread across the galaxy at key locations. The way that they work is that when they are activated, they create a nearly mass-free corridor between a pair of relays and then launch a nearby ship along that corridor at absolutely insane speeds, allowing that ship to cover distances in days or hours that would normally take years or even centuries using standard FTL drive. Something I personally didn't pick up on when I played the games, but which is apparently kind of important, is that there are actually two kinds of mass relays: primary and secondary. Primary relays can propel an object thousands of light years, but only between a single pair of relays. Secondary relays can link to any other relay that's in range, but only at a range of a few hundred light years. Unfortunately, specific speeds are once again not listed, but based on the information provided, a ship traveling via mass relay should be able to do somewhere between 100 light years per day at the very low end, assuming a 100 light year jump took a whole day, to 23,976 light years per day, assuming a 999 light year jump could be completed within an hour. There's your range. It's a massive range. Sorry. For the sake of argument, though, I'm going to split the difference and say that mass relays can get you about 10,000 light years per day. As for Mass Effect regular FTL, all the FTL drives in Mass Effect utilize similar tech to mass relays in that they utilize Element Zero to reduce the mass of their ships to basically nothing, so they can exceed the speed of light. In both the case of FTL and mass relays, this doesn't actually make any sense from a physics standpoint because relativity doesn't work that way, but whatever. In any case, FTL drives are capable of moving a ship about a dozen light years per day without time dilation issues. They also have fail-safes built in from the ground up in the tech, which don't allow you to engage your FTL drive if there's a significant object in your way, so you can't do hyperspace ramming maneuvers, even on accident. They also generate a sizable static electrical charge the longer that they're used, which must be eventually discharged in some way, or it will discharge into your ship, frying everything and killing everyone on board. Mass Effect's FTL is really pretty straightforward in terms of capability. It's cited the speed limitation is to avoid time dilation issues, so I don't know if that's ever been ignored in order to travel into the future faster than at a 1-to-1 rate, which is what we're doing now, though really for combat purposes that wouldn't be all that useful anyway. Before I wrap up on this, I want to mention one thing about the Mass Effect faster than light travel, specifically around the mass relays. They are neutral. Anyone who can figure out how to use them, and they're intentionally really simple to operate, can do so. And even attempting to mine them, with sea mines effectively, is basically pointless because when you exit a mass relay jump, you arrive at a random point within about 1,000 kilometers of the relay, and that's a really massive region to have to mine effectively. But since everything coming through is random, even if you did manage to mine it, you'd have no way of actually getting friends to come and go safely because, again, they come through totally randomly. You have zero control over that. All that to say, I will be including mass relays in my comparison, but that'll be a double-edged sword since both sides of the conflict will be able to use them. As for sublight speeds, those really depend on the ship. Both sides have quick and nimble but relatively small ships, and slow but clumsy but massive ships. From what I can recall and find, neither side really has an advantage in the sublight realm. Neither side uses inertial dampers, their particular flavors of FTL don't really require them as such, so I'm not finding anything about them existing, so I'm going to assume that they don't, which means that both sides are limited to accelerations that people can actually survive normally. But what do you all think? Have I gotten some important information wrong in this section? I don't think I have, but there's a precedent for me not being right all the time, so it's certainly possible. Should I include Ket FTL drives from Andromeda, despite them existing in a completely different galaxy? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you.